So I posted a video about a week ago about the genetically modified chicken, and they had modified those chickens not to have feathers. Yeah, and what you're looking at right now is the video and the reason for why the video was removed. TikTok says it was removed for integrity, for lack of integrity and authenticity. And what you're seeing now are some of the comments from that we had gotten from the video. A lot of comments from Nigeria and Haiti, Jamaica. A lot of Africans had commented on this, and it had not, as you can see, it had not gotten that many views. I think after an hour it had gotten about 10,000 views and that many shares. So now what I'll do is I'll actually talk about the video because I can't post it. And the thing that stood out, most from all this is that from that video, the white man who genetically modified these chickens was seated somewhere in the US or in Europe and was getting solutions for Africans. Yeah, clearly without having any knowledge of what is happening in Africa, because if he had knowledge, he would know that the chickens in Africa have never complained about heat. Yeah, I've never seen them complaining. They know how to regulate their own heat, and they have been living in Africa for a long time. So we don't need featherless chicken. That now, brings into focus these genetically modified foods and the agenda for genetically modifying foods and sending them to Africa. Is it really for our good, or are they targeting something else? And especially now with genetically modified foods, and now the fact that we are in the information age, we have very good examples about these GMOs. And the case study for us can be America, for instance. Yeah, if you look at America, the company called Monsanto, which started genetically modifying foods, as we speak right now, is out of business and is facing a string of cases. Actually, 200,000 individual cases of causing cancer. I was saying that the case study for us is the US and the US company Monsanto, which is facing a string of over 200,000 cases and has to pay out in damages over 200 billion because the genetically modifying foods cause cancer to all those 200,000 individuals. So that's a good case study for us to look at as Africa, and then now examine whether these people who are genetically modifying foods have our best interests at heart, or they actually want to hurt us and finish us. And now, as I was saying, that these solutions are really unsolicited. No African has ever gone to Europe or America and cried that, oh, help us with our agricultural products, they are suffering. No African has ever gone there, or our chicken. And you see, the thing is that this genetic modification or genetic engineering has not stopped at these featherless chickens. And I'm going to be putting the videos up here for you to see what exactly I'm talking about. They have genetically modified cattle or cows to give them more beef, and you see that they are much, much bigger. So all these cows are created in the lab, yeah? And all the products that now you'll be taking are created in the lab. They have genetically modified pigs. They have genetically modified fish, yeah, to make it grow faster in a shorter time and have more flesh. They have genetically modified chickens. As you've seen, they have taken away the feathers and given them more flesh so that, they can sell more. They have genetically modified, what else? I think one of the more interesting or intriguing experiments was the one where they got the gene that causes these glowworms to glow. They got that gene and put it in rabbits, and now you have glowing rabbits, which is an experiment. Your guess is just as good as mine whether this experiment is really necessary. But although these technological advances might be good to some extent for the Europeans, not for Africans, but for the Europeans, the thing that they don't indicate to the final consumers of these products is the side effects of consuming these genetically modified organisms. No one tells you about the side effects. And I'll tell you why there are always side effects with the consumption of these genetically modified foods. One is that genetic mutation has always happened. The genetic mutation of human beings from black people to white people happened over 30,000 years. So you all know, or you should know, that we existed on this earth 150,000 years ago as black people, and we were on this earth alone. No one else was on the earth. So 150,000 years, then we start traveling out to different continents, and we go to Europe. Now, when we go to Europe, that's where the Ice Age comes in, and as we incubate in the caves to hide away from the snow, over a period of 30,000 years, the black person turns into a white person. And that's where now that genetic mutation happened. Now you see a small change in the genes, like that, just from black to white, took almost 30,000 years, or just over 30,000 years. During that period of 30,000 years, the genes are, adapting to the environment, so that they can thrive in the new environment. Yeah, and that's why now white people are able to thrive better in the snowy conditions than black people do. Now, if you get that process that takes 10,000 years and you do it in a short span of 1 year, of course you're going to have side effects from that. And that's where now all these cancer cases that we've seen in Europe, in the US and Europe, have eventually happened. Yeah, that's where all these cancer cases have now started to surface 30 years after they started using the products from the lab. That's where now, as Africans, we have to look at it carefully and see how to stay away from these genetically modified organisms or genetically modified foods. And some of the things that you can look at as an African to avoid these genetically modified foods is, one, to make sure that your food goes from the ground to the plate to your mouth. No lab involved. Then two, you have to make sure that your food is natural food, that the food grows naturally without having to be cultured from the lab. Yeah. For instance, if you look at carrots, you will have to culture them from the lab and then get the seed from the lab, plant it. But if you look at, for instance, these smaller tomatoes, yeah, there are those smaller tomatoes Africans know, but those tomatoes grow naturally. Those are the natural foods that you have to look out for if you're going to maintain your health, make yourself hard to kill through food. You have to target the types of food that you eat and make sure they're not genetically modified. How do you make sure that they're not genetically modified? Get your food from the garden to your plate to your mouth. That's one. Then two, make sure that your food grows naturally, that the seeds are not cultured from the laboratory then to the garden. Natural foods, you'll see that they can even grow wildly. That is a natural food. And we've fed on those natural foods for 150,000 years. They have survived that long. They might have changed a little bit, but they have survived that long, and they have fed us and kept us healthy for that long. I mean, when I'm talking about we, I'm saying Africans, yeah? Because our foods are different. We have to admit that the type of foods that we eat are different. If you look at a polar bear and a gorilla, they are probably both from the same class, but the food of the polar bear is not the same food as the gorilla. And that's how we have to look at it, that the food that white people eat is not necessarily what is good for us, is not good food for us. That food is not made for a genetic predisposition. Yeah? So the food that's meant for a genetic predisposition is the food that is here in Africa, that was started growing in Africa. And that's what we have to target. So natural food, green, and from the ground to the plate to your mouth. Then some of the other things that you can look at, and that most of the holistic healers, and their treatment is not symptomatic. They heal the whole body. Yeah. And starts with diet. And one of the things that they tell you, or the advice, is that you drink a lot of water. And then when you're eating your foods, the color of the food that you eat, for the most part, the color of the food that you eat nourishes the part of the body that resembles it in terms of color. So if you're eating tomatoes, or nourish the blood. So your target has got to be in those terms.